All right, welcome back to the PPS Wednesday Hype Show 2025. Right, you've heard some other speakers, and today and now, or not today, actually, this is all going to be mashed up together. I got Paul Singh, CEO of Strata PT, who's going to be speaking Wednesday, November 12th at 1 to 2 local time. And the title of the talk is Moneyball for Private Practices, Startup Tactics to Grow, Profit, and Exit. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm well. Not the first time here, not our first conversation, but it's fun. I keep bringing this up, right? Wednesday's not a typical day. I want everybody to know there's awesome content. I want them to hear a little bit from the speakers and give everybody even more incentive to get there. Why don't you, I don't know, give us a little background on you and then the talk. I think what goes well, Paul, is what's their biggest takeaway that day, and what can they go back to the clinic thinking about, for Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah. Okay. So, anybody can read the brief and all that stuff, but it's, as you get to know me, it's not the way I talk. So, here's the thing. I'm not a PT, never been one. I see one a lot. I seem to mess myself up pretty often, but definitely not a practice owner or anything like that. So the irony is I'm probably the least qualified person to run Strata PT, but here we are. That's a different discussion. Anyway, yeah, I'm doing this talk called Moneyball for private practices. And candidly, it's a rehash of what I've done for the last 15 or 17 years across the tech startup world. So I've invested in a little over 3,200 companies across 50, almost 60 countries now. I've invested in companies like Credit Karma, Mint.com, Twilio, SendGrid, Wildfire, Canva, a lot of names like that. And here's the assertion. The modern private practice actually looks more like a tech startup than most people would realize or recognize. And in this talk, I'm going to kind of pull the veil back a little bit. And what you should probably expect to learn from this is actionable things you can go test out at your practice, Monday when you get back from PPS. I mean, heck, you could probably do it, right after the talk. Open up your laptop and I'll show you kind of some tactics. So here's the thing, though. I'm going to give you guys a bunch of examples of what we've seen other companies do and not do in the tech world. And the important thing here to recognize is that your job, if you decide to listen to it or at least entertain, listen to some bad jokes for a few minutes, is to decide what you think is going to be applicable to your geography, your specialty, your niche. So yeah, look, bottom line, I am just going to talk to you about how other companies have used tactics to grow their businesses, to make them more profitable, and ultimately get them ready for exit. That's kind of how on the investor side we make any money anyways, right? They got to go public or they got to get acquired by somebody. And ultimately, if that's your goal, the reality is that you got to learn to grow this thing. If I keep going here, I'll give you the whole talk now, but maybe the thought.
I think that's perfect. I got a couple follow-up / clarifying questions, I think here. I heard two really good things. You said right off the bat, and I want to emphasize this, right? That physical therapy businesses and practices are a lot like tech companies when they start, right? So that process, the startup to growth, to scalability, to things like that, correct?
100%. Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
So that's good. And I want people to hear that. I spent so much of my time, Paul, creating something, convincing myself it didn't exist and there weren't other examples out there. So I think that happens to a lot of people, and we get told you're in healthcare, it's different. And so I want everybody, of which I don't believe anymore, right? There is foundational work and strategies and thoughts and ideas that you need to be processing and need to drive decision-making. Would you agree? That match every business?
Yeah, I mean, so the short answer is I 100% agree with you, but I'm going to give you maybe a complete comment after that, which is you don't have to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
People don't remember that, like, when Airbnb today is valued at more than most of the major publicly traded hotel lines like Marriott and Hyatt, right? And they do that without actually owning any underlying assets, and they don't own real estate. But most people forget that their start was actually hovering around Craigslist ads for shared apartments around music festivals. And, when we go to even like, when we think about Uber didn't, today we know them as like, you can get an Uber anywhere, right? But most people don't remember that at one point back at, I think it was 2009, 2010, when I first saw them, it was one black car.
Yeah.
They just had one black car on a payroll.
I'm going to say
they
had no black cars when I first got on there, Paul.
Yeah. So ultimately, here's the thing: the modern day private practice really does look more like these consumer-focused tech companies. Frankly, it looks more like your local grocery store too.
Yeah, I agree.
People don't really quite understand that. Like when you walk into your grocery store, they're like trying to make sure you got the freshest milk and the best, avocados, whatever. But let's be very, very clear. When you walk into a Wegmans or a Whole Foods or a Harris Teeter, whatever you got, Piggly Wiggly, what they're looking at is what is the average check amount? What is this person walking out with? And how often are they coming back? And so again, like, I think if you're coming to this talk, if you're going to come give me a little bit of your time and your attention, I don't want you to come in there thinking that I'm going to blow you away with some profound thing. In fact, I'm going to talk to you like a second grader, because the reality of business is that you don't need to innovate here, right? I think one of the mistakes we all make, and I'm just going to say this to anybody that chooses to come spend a few minutes at my talk. If you do nothing else in preparation for this, I would say recognize that there's a difference between entrepreneurship and innovation. I think we use those words interchangeably, and it's completely wrong. I think the reality is if you want to shoot a rocket to Mars and keep humans alive in space for a year, you better innovate. You got to figure out life support, food, waste, all that stuff. For the rest of us, entrepreneurship is just a way you think, right? So for example, I like to train for marathons. That turns out to be the thing that also happens to make me happy, but it also happens to get me hurt. And you've seen, I'm about to tell you something, and anybody listening is be like, oh, duh, this is so obvious. Well, it seems to me that a lot of the PTs that seem to crush it in the runner circles seem to find a way to either join those run groups or sponsor those run groups. Now, that's one data point, right? But I'm going to give you a couple data points during the talk where it's common in every other industry as well. And my hope is that people, after the talk, my hope is that people look at their business from the outside in and realize where they're leaving money on the table. Because the modern day practice looks so much like any other consumer business.
Can we run this back about 26 years and then give this talk, and I can sit in there, Paul, before I start what I won't call a business? Right.
The best time to start was 26 years ago. The next
you are correct.
On that Wednesday, right?
Yeah, and I love what you just parked all in there, and I don't think we need to go any deeper. And it took me forever. So anything I say comes from hindsight, not from being smart at the front end. All that, everything you just said, almost this, I call it like it's foundational thinking. And this was the one thing I did learn after, right, going out and reading business books and finding business mentors and finally doing some of this work was, okay, there's a commonality. I was in an EO group with a painter. Our forum was a painter, a solar startup, a commercial real estate guy, and one other thing in the room. And I learned everything from them that I needed to know to move my business forward. And it was after I connected with all of them and we would all sit in the same room. And instead of going, oh, how are we all different? It's like, holy fuck, we're all the same.
I know, and you cut me off whenever you want. Here's the thing, like, I'm going to just give people a couple teasers here. The average PT markets the least. I mean, the real estate guy I used to buy a house 5 years ago markets to me more than the PT that I see 12 times a year.
Yeah, right.
And here's the thing, like, before you guys like totally tune me out, think about it this way. When you shop on Amazon, but then forget to complete the transaction, if you look carefully, you'll notice ads start to follow you around. When you buy socks from Bombas, you end up getting an email once a month, twice a month, something like that says, hey, check out our latest socks, or how your socks doing, right? I mean, I use 1-800-CONTACTS for my contacts, right? And, they know what I ordered. They're going to run out in 6 months. And guess what? At month 5, it says, hey, your prescription's still valid. Click here to purchase some more. And I think what happens is a lot of business owners forget They overlook these things because we tend to overthink these things. Business owners like you and me.
The overlook to the overthink. That's
right. And what we need to remember is that we aren't the customer. When I'm like in my CEO hat, I'm skeptical of everything. I'm like, oh, look at that marketing, right? But I got to remind myself, even as a CEO of Strata, I got to remind myself that I got to take that hat off. I got to put my runner hat on, my dad hat on. And I got to remember, like, I don't even know what's for dinner tonight. I got to remember to go pick up the kids this afternoon. I got to get my wife some flowers. And I have forgotten.
And I got to run 3.5 miles.
Right. And so like my health, unfortunately, falls to the bottom of that. And it sounds so basic, but you know, hey, even a text message from my PT every once in a while saying, hey, I know you're getting ready for the Marine Corps Marathon. How's that going? I bet you I'd probably respond with, you know, my left shin's kind of bothering me. And he'll probably say, like, well, hey, come on over. Because, you know, direct access is a thing. And so it's so basic. And I can tell you right now, somebody watching this is rolling their eyes. Oh, Paul, it's so basic. It's so basic. If you disagree with me, open up your personal email, your Gmail, whatever it is. If you use Hotmail, I'm already judging you, but whatever. Right. Open up your personal email and just start skimming through it. And you don't have to be honest with me. You don't have to be honest with you, Jerry, or anybody else, but be honest with yourself as you're looking at it. There's a reason these companies market to you. And it's not because they're getting paid by the number of emails they send out. It's because it works.
Yeah, 100%, right? Yeah.
You know, so anyway, my hope is that people have some actionable stuff right away.
So here we go again, right? With doubling back to, I'm going to say kind of broad, there's a blueprint to success here, and there's foundational across so many businesses. And right, that's what I learned when I started to study business, right? And I just kept going,
oh man,
wait a minute. In-N-Out Burger is doing the same thing Charles Schwab is versus, right, this other company. And it took me forever to figure that out.
I'll go one step further and I make an assertion. I truly believe, and in all of my investing in the last 20 years, I truly believe that 80% of every business is the same. The 20% different is whether you provide a PT service, you sell socks, you sell milk and honey, right? That's the 20%. And that's hard for people to hear because, you know, they want to think they got the best, you know, certificate, the best whatever, but the best is relative. 80% of every business is the same. You need to win the hearts and minds of your customers. You get them to come to you once and you deliver such a great service that they can't help but come back to you. And the tricky part is they will forget. I mean, I don't even know what I said to you 60 seconds ago. So this is where marketing comes in. Marketing's not sleazy. It's how you grow.
Awesome. All right. Wednesday,
it's gonna be fun.
November 12th from 1 to 2 p.m. I'm going to even tell you in the Sebastian room. How about that, Paul?
I love it.
And we got Moneyball for private practices, startup tactics to grow, profit, and exit. And I think you got the perfect example, perfect discussion. All right. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, man. We'll see you there.
If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and RCM works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo.